Welcome to Listen Again, the Monitor Audio Group podcast. In today's episode, I talk to the amazing Martyn Ware. Martyn, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Kind.
I've got a long list of questions here, Martyn.
Go for it.
But I would love for you to provide a little bit of background on yourself and what you've done, because you have the most amazing career and you've worked with some incredible people, and I'm sure our audience would be really interested in finding out a little bit more about that. And I think if we hit a couple of points, I'm going to dive in.
Just let me go. Wind me up, let me go. Okay, where do we start? I started with the Human League, early doors. First two albums, I formed the Human League, in fact. And then we had a bit of a falling out and went on to form Heaven 17. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then became, concurrently with that, I had a production company called British Electric Foundation, which worked with very famous singers and new kind of electro soul versions of songs. And that's where I met a lot of famous singers, in particular, Tina Turner, who I went on to produce Let's Stay Together, which was the biggest selling 12-inch record in American history at the time. Yeah. And of course that helped relaunch her career. I'm even a character in her in her musical, actually.
Oh, wow.
Somebody playing me every night. Yeah.
That must be quite surreal.
It's very odd. Particularly, it's nothing like me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you have you seen it yet? Have you seen? Yeah. And you there's nothing in there that you go, oh, that's me.
It's embarrassing because they've kind of characterised me as a kind of trick northerner.
Oh, right, okay.
For an international audience, it's like, hey up, Tina.
Oh dear.
Has they seen my synthesizer? Actually, it's not a synthesizer. A Fairlight, and it's like, oh, what's that? And it's like, really? Pretty basic stuff. Okay. Anyway, it's good for the brand, I suppose. Keeps my name in the public eye. So.
But so that, obviously, you've talked to me about that sort of departure from Human League to Heaven 17. Before we talk about Tina, because I find that utterly remarkable and interesting, and I'm sure our audience would as well. Just talk us through the end of Human League and starting Heaven 17, because that was a tumultuous time, obviously. Yeah. And
I was like 24, 25 at the time. We were slowly building up our audience. We'd been on national tours with people like Susie and the Banshees and Per Uber and the Stranglers, and touring Europe with Iggy Pop. And
wow, that must have been quite amazing.
Oh, it was amazing. I daren't tell you some of the stories. They're far too risque for this podcast. But and we were slowly growing our audience, but I think Virgin, it wasn't growing fast enough.
Right.
So what transpired was they thought perhaps we were a bit too arty. I know that's the wrong word, probably. We thought we were on the nose, Okay. We were writing good pop songs and it just totally electronically, and we thought, we were happy to be pioneers, but it wasn't translating into sales. So
I see.
Anyway, unbeknownst to me, behind the scenes, the record company were talking to our management and Phil separately, because they obviously saw him as a pop star, a straightforward pop star.
Okay.
So behind my back, they were creating a fait accompli situation.
Right.
Tried to throw me out of my own group, which I refused, and then Ian unexpectedly decided to come with me, who's the other member of Human League. And that put the cat amongst the pigeons. So we negotiated we said, all right, you can use the name, because I'm quite happy to move on in the end, but you have to compensate us for that. And we said, give us 1% each on whatever the next, off the top of retail of whatever the next album is. Now, it could have been a bomb.
Yes, yeah, quite.
But it turned out to be Dare. we sold 9 million copies. So happy days.
So you benefited from a very bad situation.
And then we started simultaneously British Electric Foundation. And Heaven 17 was the first project of the British Electric Foundation.
And that's where it's come from. Right, okay. And that, obviously, you saw some success with that because then you carried on with Heaven 17.
Yeah, Heaven 17 kind of assumed a life of its own.
Yeah.
And...
I mean, what was that like for you, though? I mean, because obviously emotionally, it must have been extraordinarily difficult.
It was... What can I say? There's all these self-help books saying, right, the key thing here is resilience. Mm-hmm. And since then, a lot of water's gone under the bridge. I've done education. I passed this knowledge on to the students that I've taught at MA level and say, look, the key thing is bounce back ability,
Yeah.
And I, at the time, I managed to translate that energy, the negative energy, into positive energy, and became insanely motivated to be successful, be stylish, be successful, and show those buggers who's boss,
Yeah.
So there was like a kind of arms race. We were trying to chase each other, who could get the first single out, who could get the first album out. But, very quickly, within, say, a year, that kind of dissipated to a certain extent because Heaven 17 it seemed very petty and bitter just to kind of use that as a motivation. So it was like a kickstart, really.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because it could have gone either way. There are some people in the industry I know, because I produced a lot of individual artists and stuff, who actually don't have the wherewithal to withstand setbacks. They'll just go, oh, look, I'll just be, I'll stay at home and paint pictures or find another career.
Particularly after that, where it's sort of so contrived, where it's going on around you, and you get a sense of something happening, but you're not quite sure.
No, I didn't get any sense of anything happening.
And then the sort of the bomb drops, and you're like, wow,
Yeah, no, it's completely out of the blue. There was no indication. There was no kind of one like I didn't read the room.
Yeah,
there was nothing.
I mean, that's just remarkable.
It really is.
But to retain your self-belief and, to have that continued self-confidence to be able to continue to put yourself out there. But also, to go and then start up another group, was there labels still interested? Because that's obviously the other thing at that moment in time.
The label wanted
to keep you.
Basically, for them, it was like they were getting two bands for the price of one.
Wow! So they were like. Oh.
So it was like the same contract, more or less, different names, obviously.
Right.
Same contract.
Double bubble.
Double bubble.
Crikey! Okay.
So it suits them, but the thing that they understood, and the truth of the matter is that myself and Ian wrote 95% of the music for the first two Hume League albums.
Right.
So they saw us more as a studio act, which is why they wanted to sign British Electric Foundation.
Okay, and work with other artists.
And work with other artists as well.
Sure.
So they were like triple dipping, right? So from their point of view, it made sense. And they were willing... This was at a time, people need to understand, where there was money around for record labels. It was the start of MTV. It was the start of CD manufacturing. So that's like the North Sea oil windfall, right? They're reselling all their back catalogue in a different format. So there was all this money awash, and if they didn't use it to sign up new acts, then they'd end up paying corporation tax on it. So there was a lot of acts being signed, and so from that point of view, the timing was perfect for us.
And then
we got a good deal,
Yeah, sure.
Decent.
So I mean, that's obviously very satisfying coming out of something relatively negative. Well, not relatively, very negative and very hurtful on many levels.
Yeah, he was my best friend from school, by the way, Phil. I got him into the band.
Wow, so it's
like again, on that level alone, it was a real dagger, yeah.
Oh, crikey. But success has followed, and that, you know, every cloud has a silver lining. And so you mentioned Tina Turner. That was one of my questions, because you and I have had a couple of really exciting discussions about that. And I'm again, and I don't feel like I've heard enough. I want to know more. So tell us. She was she approached and they said, look, we've got someone who might be able to produce
the way it worked is, at the same time as we were making Penthouse and Pavement, the first M17 album, we were making, I and Ian, who was part of BEF at the time, were making Musical Quality and Distinction Volume 1, which was all these cover versions with famous singers, and but done in a kind of electronic soul kind of arrangement, which was, you know, would have been quite common in today's world, but back then was unique because synthesizer was just becoming popular. So that was the USP, if you like, of that. We'd already recorded a bunch, well, all the other singers on the album, and I was due to fly out to Atlanta to record James Brown doing the backing track that we created for Ball of Confusion, the Temptations song. And the day before we were due to fly out, James Brown's lawyers rang up Virgin and said, Mr. Brown wants all the percentage on all the tracks on the album, not just his track, or he's not going to do it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I said, well, first of all, we can't. Even if we want to do, we can't, because we have a most favoured nations clause, which means everybody has to have the same deal. Whatever the best deal is, everybody gets. And secondly, we're not going to do it anyway. We love James, but Mr. Brown to you, you know, it's like that kind of thing, right? Wow. Yeah. So I'm going, oh, okay. Yeah. And so went down to I used to live near Virgin Records in Notting Hill, and went down to see our friend Gemma, who was like the A&R coordinator. And I was just so depressed, because this was the last track on the album, just getting ready to kind of polish it all off. I thought, oh, God, we worked so hard on this. Who are we going to get? And I was bemoaning my fate.
How long does that type of album, how long were you working on it?
We didn't have a huge budget for that, so it would have been a month.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, that
pretty
feels
quick.
Yeah, it does. It feels quite rapid,
Bemoaning my fate, talking to Gemma, I knew she'd walked past, but Ken Berry, who was one of the, I think he was the financial director of Virgin Records. He's one of the original partners. I didn't really know him. You know, I'd bumped into him a couple of times. And he overheard the conversation, and he said, oh, I'm just flying out to LA. My wife's friends with Tina Turner. What about Tina Turner? I'm going, wow. Yes, and as luck would have it, I'd just seen Tina Turner perform her Proud Mary show, which she'd been touring around the kind of chicken in the basket circuit in America, as they call it, earning good money. But she didn't have a record contract at the time. She was perceived as being...
Wow, really?
Yeah, she was perceived as being over.
Right.
Right, apart from a few cabaret shows. And I'd just seen her at the venue, this theatre in Victoria in London. I thought she was incredible. And, you know, River Deep Mountain High is one of my all-time favourite singles. Yeah. I said, wow, could we really? Next thing I know, I'm on Concorde.
Cool. Nice.
And Glenn had managed to scrape into it somehow. I don't know how. Ian wasn't there, but Glenn was. And we were in Tina Turner's front room, and she was making us, you know, a pot of tea and with biscuits.
Amazing.
She was a bit of an Anglophile, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about the personality? Because obviously, you know, Tina Turner, obviously from that moment on, essentially working with you and with others, has then gone on to sort of worldwide superstar. Yeah. We all know the name. We all see the personality on stage performing, and you know, it's very sad that she's passed away. Yeah. But what was she like in your first impression, and then working with her?
Amazingly down to earth, just like me and you talking now, just very... I mean, I didn't know she was a Buddhist at the time, but I think her faith really was a large part of that. She was incredibly humble, actually. But a combination of humble and, that kind of bulletproof confidence that comes from knowing how good you are and what you've already achieved. She already had a full career.
Yeah.
This is like Act 2.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's starting. And there was at that time, I didn't know this, but at that time I didn't know, and she didn't know, and Roger Davis, her manager, didn't know whether they were even going to get signed, because at one point she got offered a contract and then they kind of reneged on it.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was because they could see the inklings of success for a new audience when they put Ball of Confusion out from the BEF album. It only got to like 42 or something, it's just outside where it could go on top of the pops. But they could see, they started to visualise how she could be sold to a different audience, a new audience.
Right.
And so consequently, anyway, Roger Davis came to me and said, would you and Heaven 17 like to write a couple of songs for this forthcoming album, Private Dancer? And we said, we were right in the middle of recording Luxury Gap, our second album. I said, well, we don't really have time to write, so I'm a little bit frightened of writing for her anyway, because she's a legend.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I said, well, we don't have time to do that, but we're happy to do a couple of more cover versions. And they said, okay, yeah, we'll do that. And so I went round to see her. She was staying in London in Holland Park in this amazing kind of beautiful kind of manor house with a walled garden and all, and guards, right, in case Ike tried to get to her. Right, and yeah, so we're going through the list of. I did a short list of 10 songs, and I wrote it all down. And I wish I'd still got that list because I've forgotten most of them. But at the top of the list was "Let's Stay Together." And I didn't know she was a massive Al Green fan.
Okay.
Because I thought, in the back of my mind, is she's kind of turned her back on being a soul singer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, it's like she really wants to be a rock singer, like, her heroes were Mick Jagger and
sort of big
Rod Stewart and that kind of thing. And I could see it, But I said, look, I actually directly told her at this meeting, I said, she's quite brave for a 25-year-old lad from Sheffield, right? I said, I think you need to nail once and for all your legacy as being one of the greatest soul artists of all time. And I think she could see how much I meant it. I wasn't just pitching her a sales pitch.
Yeah.
And she loved Al Green, and I think, according to her autobiography, I think she was a bit mystified by the whole process. But anyway, I think she liked me, and so therefore she agreed. And then I said, well, how about if we do a Bowie song as well, which is, we were just coming up, this was 1983 we were recording. I said, why don't we do 1984, because then it'll put you slap bang in contemporary, make you look really on the ball, right? And it's a great song anyway.
Yeah.
I'd say, I like that idea as well, because she's a big Bowie fan. And so we did that, and to cut a long story short, it was massively successful. Let's Stay Together. It kind of... There was a thing where artists could regenerate their career in Europe and then take it back to America. Whereas breaking America from scratch with an old... it's a horrible word to say, but old, or kind of... They would even go past it, artist... from scratch in America is like virtually impossible. So anyway, they saw that it was being successful in Europe, came back to US, and as I said, biggest selling 12-inch record in history at that point. And then that led to her getting a record, etc. And so it all goes from there.
And of course, then for you as the producer, What was it, just before we sort of deviate, what was it like being in the studio with Tina Turner? Because that must have been something else.
Well, I mean, I knew it would be good, but how do you quantify that? I mean, it's like we were completely prepared. Everything, the whole, 80% of the backing track was done. There were some things we kind of worked around her vocal afterwards, but and she was just bamboozled that there was no band. We all take computer. Digital audio workstations for granted now, but back then, 99% of what she did was with a live band.
Yeah.
So she had to get over that hump perceptually. But then, in particular, let's go back to Ball of Confusion. So we did that, and at the end, she clearly rehearsed every nuance of that song. It was all one take.
Wow.
No drop-ins, no corrections, no second takes, or
like a true professional.
Smashed it. She could have probably done the same performance 50 times in a row and not got it wrong.
Wow.
But bear in mind, she came from a world where she was the person who came in and put the magic on at the end. Mm. And it was Ike, or whoever, or whoever the producer was, who would have everything prepared for her, and she would just go in. She never, apart from Nutbush City Limits, she never, as far as I know, wrote anything significant. She was quite happy to be a performer in the studio.
Okay,
that was acceptable. Mm-hmm. So when she came into the studio, it was like, okay, are you ready to go? Yeah.
Bam.
Bit of a 2-minute chit chat in the studio. She said she did it perfectly, amazingly. And she said, "Would you like me to do it again?" And I'm going, "Yeah, for insurance purposes, if you want." But really, it's perfect, And then at the end, she came into the studio and I had to listen back to it, and she said, "Martyn, that was kind of difficult to sing." And I'm going, "Well, yeah, no, it's kind of wideish range, She said it sounded like there were more than one singer on there. I'm going, "Tina, it was the Temptations." And she said, "Who are they?"
Oh, wow.
She didn't know who the Temptations were.
Wow.
That's how far she'd gone away from being interested in soul music.
Yeah. Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. Yeah. That is remarkable.
Yeah.
But she absolutely smashed it, as you say. That's reignited her career to stratospheric heights. Right?
Yeah, the truth is that, Let's Stay Together was even more perfect. And that was all one take as well. And what's clear is, it was at that moment I had a kind of epiphanal moment where it was, I realised she's an actress. Actress, that really she could speak that performance and it would still have the emotional impact because she'd absorbed, in the greatest tradition of soul singing, she'd absorbed the meaning of all the lyrics, and now her job was to impart that on a one-to-one basis with every listener at the other side.
Amazing. I mean, that's the emotive impact of her singing. That must have been stunning. When you're
it was unbelievable.
Standing there listening to it for the first
time.
Well,
interestingly, we did, as I mentioned, we did vocals with lots of other famous vocalists. And people like Sandy Shaw, for instance. Mm-hmm. Same, from that generation, the same professionalism, because that's what they did. Their job was to be, if you liken it to the Premier League of football, they've got to be in the European qualifying places. They've got to be in the top 5 in the country to get to be as successful as they are as interpreters. And that's what I fear is being lost to a large extent nowadays.
Interesting. It's very interesting. Well, let's just take a slight tact here because you mentioned synthesizers, and I want to talk a little bit of technology now because obviously you said your first album 1983 when Heaven 17 was that?
No, the first Human League album was 78, and then the first Heaven 17 album was 81.
81, right. And that's obviously at the dawn of electronic music, essentially. I mean, I guess it had been in a little bit of fruition before. It
exploded, didn't it? Because really you had Gary Newman, you had OMD, you had various other electronic acts who came along. But a lot of them, we were all inspired by Kraftwerk and actually disco and Giorgio Moroder was a big influence, and that was all happening mid-70s. But the real changing point was when affordable synths came out, because we were just working class kids with relatively low paid jobs, and things like my first synth was a Korg 700S, which was like 350 quid. I remember going in because we all wanted to be right. Our heroes were early Roxy Music and then Kraftwerk and blah blah. But we never thought we'd ever be able to do it, because I remember going to see Keith Emerson and ELP, and he used to have, mountains of modular synths, and I'm going, it was really a rich person's world. I mean, everyone goes on about how brilliant Kraftwerk were, and came from humble beginnings. No, they didn't. They came from extremely rich parents.
Right.
Robert Moog designed a specific version of a giant Moog modular system for them specifically. So that's not cheap.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. It looked unattainable. Now then, anyway, going back to the shop where I bought my first synth, there's a place inspiringly called Musical Sounds in Sheffield. And it was 98%, hairy hippies basicps playing Stairway to Heaven on whatever the latest Gibson copy was, and amps and blah, blah, blah. And they thought, we'd better dabble our toe in the water here because it was cheap enough. And they just got this Korg 700S, which is a monophonic machine. And in fact, it's the one that we did Being Boiled on.
Oh, okay.
Which is our first single with, the lead line anyway. Ian, who I found out later, his parents had won the pools, had gone and bought a Roland System 100, which is one of the earliest kind of affordable modular synthesizers. So those two machines is what we started with the Human League. Anyway, so I went into this shop and said, can we try this out? And you could see them looking down the nose and going,
really?
You know what, really? You want it? They said, got one to try it, see what the... So we're playing and saying, right, we'll take it. And it's like, at that time, we didn't have enough to pay cash. So we had to get it on HP, and God, those are the days. I've still got that machine, still use it live.
Oh, wow. Well, what's the really cool one? I can't remember. I know you've got a Rhodes in your studio.
Yeah.
But there was that little one that you were showing me that you could plug all the different plugs into it, and you could... Cause you've used that regularly, but that's a lovely old piece of kit. That's
Roland System 100, yeah.
Yeah,
they're worth...
Fantastic.
I think if you want to get one on eBay, they're over £10,000.
Crikey. Yeah. I mean, I guess the thing is, with those types of instruments, those early instruments that are sort of quite pioneering and they do demand a price tag now, because...
There aren't many left.
They do a particular thing, don't they? And they make particular sounds that I think are often recreated digitally, but you're getting the real deal there, aren't you?
The components don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So, in fact, if anything goes wrong with the oscillators or whatever, the filter and everything, it's almost impossible. They have to get replacements. There's no stock, right? Well, it's 50 years old? So, essentially, there's a kind of secondary market micro market of people manufacturing similar components. That's why you end up with people like Behringer, who, in fact, I've just ordered their recreation of the original Lindrum, because that's what we used on Penthouse and Pavement. And they can now do it, 'cause a lot of it's on a chip, and it's mass production. It never sounds the same.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's not the same component. So
never sounds the same.
Yeah.
Because the signal delivery path is totally different. If any part of that path is digital, then you know, it's about cost effectiveness.
Did it take you when you found the instrument that you sort of fell in love with?
Yeah.
Did your sound take time to develop, or did you just strike a chord and you were like, that's it, that's how we want to make our music, that's what we want to sound like?
Yes. Interestingly, it was Japanese instruments that appealed to us.
Right.
Because things like Moog and the other, you know, kind of American manufacturers of synthesizers, they were very much aimed at existing rock acts, to add as a little seasoning, make them sound a bit more modern, wee whittly 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 whittly, you know, kind of, or Rick Wakeman, you know, that kind of thing. So it was more about, shall we say, impersonating existing instruments, whereas the Japanese have, when they were designing these instruments, both Korg and Roland, it was, and eventually Yamaha to a certain extent, it was more about, it was a completely different philosophical approach. It was more about creating sounds from scratch that were more impressionistic. So I remember getting the manual for the System 100. Well, in fact, for the Korg as well. I've got them both. And it would have like patches in the back, you know, and you turn the pages and you copy them. It's like things like Funky Frog. It's like not very useful, but things like Heavy Rainstorm.
Right. Okay.
Bird Song. You know, it wasn't just, you know, it's a synth and that's enough. Where a lot of the American ones, however good, like Minimoog was, you know, for instance, still the best sounding bass synth, really. It was still a simulacrum of something performing the same function as a bass guitar, for instance, in that case. Whereas we were more interested in this wide open frontier of new sounds that you could create and create new images in people's minds. We often used to say it's like creating a soundtrack for an imaginary film.
Yeah.
Even when you're making pop songs, right?
Yeah, I get that. And you spoke to me once about that you'd love to do a soundtrack for a film, which you haven't done yet, but we're hoping that someone...
Yeah, you never know. There must be somebody listening to this.
But also, you were very influenced by sci-fi as a child. And so just given what you've just said then, that ability to create sounds that are far-reaching and sci-fi-esque in terms of their kind of timbre and stuff, and the rhythms and the things that you create. I mean, you must have just felt those dots joining, going, you know, this is where I can creatively kind of expand my musical horizons here, because it's something that, you know, I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
And more recently, we've teamed up on doing something called Adventures in the Electroverse, which is where you create this wonderful 3D immersive soundscape, which is an incredible thing to witness and be part of. How quickly did you sort of recognise it? Like when you sort of drew the dots, how quickly did you go, right, this is where we need to get going?
Well, immediately, actually, within the first 10 minutes. I mean, because There was there's two key factors here. I'm not a trained musician, right? And I've got no interest in being trained. I've got a fantastic musical ear. I can imagine musical arrangements and counterpoint, all the things I've learned since then. I understand the function of different parts of the musical spectrum, and you've seen those diagrams where they go, here are all the on one axis you've got like all the instruments of the orchestra, and on the other axis it's like what their range is. I kind of had an intuitive understanding of that because I used to love listening to film soundtracks, both abstract and normal, and although we didn't have any classical records at home, I loved classical music. So as soon as I could afford to buy records, I would just hoover up. Not like now where you can listen to anything. You have to go and actually borrow them or buy them. Mm-hmm. So hoovering up all that influence at the same time, it was like pouring water into a block of, sandstone. It was like tremendous. Anyway, so I was just this giant hoover of influences. And all I ever wanted to... In fact, the first thing we did, there was a band called The Future before we started the Human League.
Okay. Which
is myself and Ian Marsh and a guy called Addy Newton who went on to form Clock DVA. Right. Still friends with him now. And that was really impressionistic soundscapes with a kind of rudimentary attempt at putting vocals over the top. And we actually took some demo tapes we did to about a dozen record companies in London because they were interested. And they all said the same thing pretty much. Said, number one, this is rubbish. No, they didn't. They clearly weren't keen. But bear in mind, we'd grown up with listening to bands like Amon Düül and Faust and Neu and some pretty avant-garde stuff. And I was listening to Computer, Xenakis and just a completely, what's the word? Eclectic, yeah. Mm-hmm. Taste in music. And things like, Frank Zappa and people who were pioneers. I was always interested in all that. So it's like you come to it and then you suddenly, on the table is plonk this thing where you can really have a good shot at making any sound you want. Some of them sound like real instruments. That's normally the starting point. But then you quickly mess around because all the parameters are easy to get to because of the sliders and the knobs. Before you know it, you're creating sounds that, in your demented mind, you think nobody's ever heard this before. And then the next step is arranging these into something resembling a song structure because we were big fans of traditional pop songwriting as well.
Yeah, which is melodic. And,
yeah. So to me, it all seemed very rational, Yeah. It was like about timing, being in the right place at the right time, availability of synthesizers, just got my first paycheck, didn't want to, I could afford to buy a second-hand car or a synthesizer, decided to buy a synthesizer, and I still can't drive. All these things feed into it,
No, there's a reason for that, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to the end of our time, Martyn, but
I've done 2 questions.
Yeah. I know. I knew I wouldn't get through this list. We need to do another podcast.
Yeah.
Do you think, because I haven't touched on this with you, but would there be another album in you, do you think, for
Yes, we're working on it.
Ah, superb.
And this is world exclusive, by the way.
Oh, wow. And do you have a release date?
No.
You're just going to take it. Oh, but, right.
But we've got some sketches that we're working on.
Amazing.
I am quite sceptical that there's whether there's an audience for it, but
well, you sell out your tour.
I know, but that's a different thing, isn't it? It's like there's just right. Let's put it this way: we were a high production value band, so just to give you an idea, The Luxury Gap, which is the album that's got Temptation, Come Live With Me, and Crushed by the Wheels of Industry, all that stuff. That we recorded in Air Studios at Oxford Circus, at George Martin's studio. Mm-hmm. At the time, it was the most expensive studio probably in Europe, actually, let alone the UK. Mm. We had orchestras, we had everything. We thought we may never get this chance again. Yeah. Virgin basically gave us a blank check.
Wow.
To make it.
Yeah.
We spent £300,000 on that. That's £300,000 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Is millions now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we'd ever get the budget because things have changed, but the way I view it, mm-hmm. and I think Glenn feels the same, is the worst thing we could do now is put out something for the sake of it.
Yeah. The
songs are okay, but the production values are worse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what we've said to record companies coming along, because few have asked.
Okay.
We say, are you interested? And we're going, well, there's a minimum cost to doing this. Not in terms of hiring studios. We got studios. In terms of the time that me and Glenn would otherwise be spending on earning money, as Glenn does like film and TV work. I do all this stuff with my company Illustrious, doing 3D soundscapes all over the place. I work for other people. I teach. I do whatever. And so we say a certain amount of money, say £50,000, would have to compensate us. We can make it sound close to being the same as that, but having much, in the box resources a lot of the time. Mm. And nobody wants to spend that kind of money nowadays.
Mm. Yeah, it must be
difficult because the sales aren't there.
Yeah, it must be. Do you think that there's, because you do see a trend often with very established musicians, producers, working with younger talent.
Yeah.
Would you consider that as part of your next Heaven 17 album? Have you even thought?
No.
No? So it was just, no, I think that's...
No, I'll tell you why. Both myself and Glenn, I've done a lot of mentoring of young people. I used to do an MA course in songwriting and production for 5 years. I'm very keen on helping young people get on there. Recently, there was an expression of interest from a company, and they said, I said, look, I'm going to cut to the chase here. I'm not going to waste my time and your time. Here's what we need to make it. This is the time frame. Mm-hmm. Is it of interest to you? They came back to me. They didn't even say yes or no. They just said, would you be interested in working with this fantastic new DJ composer who doing it as a collaboration? I said no, because the imperatives for record labels now are based on the number of followers. Mm. Literally, I'm not even making this up. It sounds like an exaggeration. The Radio 1 playlist is now about metrics. Mm. It's not about taste. Mm. They don't have tastemakers anymore. Radio 6 is fine, but Radio 1 is where things get broken. So, and Radio 2. So, it would only be for commercial reasons that people would suggest that, because why would we dilute the brand? Mm. If it says Heaven 17 at the top, why would I want it to be half Heaven 17 and some,
in collaboration
or half
with someone,
half some frankly mediocre DJ who's never written a song in their life? I've sold, without being arrogant, I've produced or written songs that have sold over 60 million records. Mm. Mm. Now, I know that's a different time, but that's no joke either.
No, it's not, no.
Right, so not, no. If they don't basically, there has to be an appetite from the other side.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's time for Monitor Audio record label to
take you
to
guys
cop
on.
up.
Yeah. One day, let's keep our fingers crossed.
Come on, it's about the cost of about 3 of your best speakers, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, by the sounds of it, a few more than three of them. No, it's great. Martyn, I've got so many questions. I think we're going to have to do another podcast. It's so interesting, and I really appreciate your time.
I often do. I do my own podcast.
You do? Yeah, plug it, please.
Electronically Yours with Martyn Ware. I've done 230 episodes now.
It's great. Please check it out. Yes.
And it's on all the podcast platforms. It often transpires that when you're in a interesting conversation like ours, that we end up doing a part 1, part 2.
Yeah.
I remember the last one I did like that was Robert Fripp,
Oh, yeah.
I could talk to him for 24 hours.
Yeah, amazing.
Man, he's one of my biggest influences. My favourite guitarist on earth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. No, he's extremely talented, and some of those records that he's
my God! Think about the records he's been involved with. Not just his records, but things all that the Berlin trilogy of Bowie.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He was telling me little story. He was telling me that he's always had a little bit of a bee in his bonnet about Heroes. The song Heroes. Mm-hmm. Because that's a Robert Fripp pop song. If you think about it, take Bowie off it. It's the sound of that record is Robert Fripp. All that beautiful sustained guitar melodies intertwining together. Little bit of Carlos Alomar, a little bit of whatever, not Carlos Alomar, Adrian Belew. But really, the USP of that was his, and he had this kind of, simmering resentment that he never really got the credit for it.
Yeah.
But things like that, anyway, he's that's just one example. Go and check it out.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Martyn, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. And we'll probably do a part 2. I think we have to,
I'm down with it. It's only half an hour from London. So
we love having you here. Thank you again.
Thank you.
It's been
and thanks for all the help for all the soundscapes from Monitor.
We should say, actually, that we've got one coming up, haven't we?
Yes.
So let's just plug that very quickly.
Yes, do that. In Halifax, there's a place called the Peace Hall, and they've got a gallery there. We've already done one based around what we were talking about earlier, Adventures in the Electroverse. But the new one was one we originally did in Venice, in a palazzo on the Grand Canal, called It's Always Ourselves We Find in the Sea, which is about water gods and the cycle of water, and it's really beautiful. Co-written with my son Gabriel. And that's going to be on for a month, starting, the whole month of April, basically.
Thank you again, Martyn.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful having you.
Let's do it again.
Thanks so much for watching this latest episode of Listen Again. If you liked it, please like, comment and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with all the latest episodes.